Well, my name is Michael Tang, and I'm professor of Science Technology Studies at the University of Colorado, Denver. Uh, I teach courses in the history of science and technology. So,
And I've taken one of your classes, the culture.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Did you take it online or in the regular section?
Yeah, I took it. I actually have to learn in the classroom. That's the
Right.
only way
I
for me.
remember now. Yeah, that's how we got to know each other.
Yeah.
Okay,
And,
great.
I loved it. I mean, coming from that kind of background, you can apply it to so much. And when people talk, you have something to talk about too, which is very valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
appreciate that.
So just to start off, what has been just your personal relationship with existentialism? Where did you, I guess, find it, or where did it come into your life?
Well, when I was in college, this was 30, 40 years ago, and it was, I think it was a philosophy of a lot of the students at that time who were not only questioning the political system, but questioning authority and questioning, different types of philosophies. And it seemed to fit the time. And then at that time, basically, what we did was, read novels and read books related to existentialism, and so it resonated, when you were young, and then when you were questioning things, and so that's basically how I ran into it. So and it's been with me since, off and on. I mean, when you're questioning things, you question, the philosophy that questions things. So that's basically, how I encountered it. I used to go, I was a pre-med student, so I was very much involved in the sciences, and just for a break, I would go into the bookstores, or into a bookstore, and pull off the shelf a book by one of the existentialists, like Nietzsche, Camus, Sartre. And then this was very interesting. It was a nice contrast to studying physiology and embryology, cytology, and biology, and all these courses that you had to take as a pre-med student.
Okay. What's the historical relevance of existentialism, and where did it, I guess, begin, and where has it brought us up until now?
Well, I think in my classes I say that it began with Darwin, even though Darwin was not an existentialist. But what Darwin basically said, that if we look at nature, is that there's no purpose in it. I mean, that and there's no direction in evolution. Things simply change. And in a way, Darwin knew that, and that's why he hesitated in publishing the theory of evolution for a long time. And then other people read, the theory, including the person I consider probably the first existentialist is Nietzsche. And what Darwin knew is that if people accepted the theory of evolution, then it's incommensurable with religious beliefs at that time. And so Nietzsche read Darwin and said, yeah, this is the way things are. If we take any credence in science, this is a close approximation of the way things really are. And I think we were talking before that Nietzsche wasn't at that time an atheist, but what they did was question the paradigm that came before, which was based on theology and religion, specifically the Christian religion. And so I think his famous saying is, "God is dead," and then he looks at all these churches and he says, "What are these but the tombs of a God who has died?" And then he continues, which a lot of people forget, and he says that we've killed God, meaning that we've killed the old idea of God. That came part and parcel in Western civilization and in the West, the Christian religion. So the existentialists, I think a lot of the existentialists who followed had to operate, followed up on Nietzsche, and I think they came, if you were to summarize existentialism, is that you were concerned with what is, not what should be, which a lot of philosophies are concerned with, or not whether or not there's some force outside of what is, and what is, according to the first existentialist, is what can be perceived through the senses. So there's something out there, and we want to know what's out there, and then we want to know what's out there and how it involves us and how we participate in basically what is. Yeah. Another famous credo well-known credo of existentialism that follows from that is that we are what we do, meaning that we're not born good or evil. We don't have a soul. We don't have an essence, which people believed before, that you're born with some type of essence, and that's who you really are. And the existentialists said, no, let's look at it again. We are what we do. And so, to me, I think this theory is very compatible with science, because science is concerned with what is. So, and then given these basic premises, I've been writing a book on the history of space and time, and so I'm looking in one chapter. I look at the question, what is space, what's time, and it's kind of interesting is that the concept of time changes, and the existentialists change their concept of time according to the dictates of science, because what happens is that after Darwin, we got the Big Bang Theory, and we got the theory, the second law of thermodynamics, which says that the universe is expanding, and that it will continue to expand. And then the essentialist would ask, well, when it keeps expanding, what's there? And then because of questions like that, they started thinking, so, well, not only are we concerned with what is, but we have to define what is, or we know what is by what is not. So then your two great existentialists, Martin Heidegger, who unfortunately, I think I shouldn't let this judge impinge my judgment, but I think he was a Nazi.
Yeah.
But, or he may have been, let's put it that way.
Okay.
And the other one was his French student, Jean-Paul Sartre, who actually studied. And Sartre, on the other hand, was very briefly, was a communist for a while, and he was a member of the Resistance against the Germans. So, but they came from the same philosophical background, and the question they asked was, was not only, what is, but Heidegger put it is, said, why are there, why is there existence, but not non-existence? But somehow they felt that the two went together, that you couldn't have existence without what they called nothingness. So the title of two of their most famous books, Heidegger, was Being and Nothingness. And he said, in order to understand being, you have to understand nothingness. And Sartre's famous book was Being and Time. But I think Sartre, as a student, started to explore not only what is, but what's not. And then, of course, and it becomes a complicated question, because how can you talk about what's not? And I think this is where they're going beyond science, because science can only talk about what is, what can be measured, which can be tested, where you can make distinctions. But then you've got this whole area that the existentialists are trying to push into. And so I think it's an evolving philosophy, and I'm glad that I'm able to do this, because maybe it's coming back, because as we were talking about earlier, that it seems to have died. I mean, it's this philosophy, and now it seems to be coming back in a different form. But I liked our discussion when you talked about, when you said what you think is not, these material atoms, but energy. And I think that would fit in very well with the evolving existentialism. And so now we have to ask the question, what is energy? And then that's where scientific background could complement each other. We can start studying then we can start studying what's energy. And with energy, there are a lot of things that experiments that you were mentioning, that are very interesting, especially in quantum mechanics. For example, in quantum mechanics, in the area of space and time, time really has no direction. In fact, when they smash atoms, using Feynman diagrams, they find out that when you smash an atom, parts of it goes backwards in time. So, and then the other things that they do in quantum physics is that they'll put an experiment where there's two slits. Now they know empirically what will happen is that they'll send a proton or a photon, and the photon will go 50-50. I mean, go through one slot or the other. But what's interesting, let me go back on this one, because right now I don't want to do something that's describe it absolutely as correctly as I can. But basically, the experiments raise up some interesting questions as to, one, whether or not photons can go faster than the speed of light. Another question it raises is that whether or not the photons can communicate with each other, and that's the interesting question.